What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. There is a silent war happening inside Russia right now. Not the one on the battlefield, not one we hear about in propaganda reports or official briefings, but this one unfolds deep inside Kremlin itself corridors, across dimly lit office buildings, encrypted phone lines and thick walled interrogation rooms. It is a rivalry so bitter and so deeply rooted that every year it threatens to explode into the open. I'm talking about the never-ending confrontation between two forces that pretend to be on the same side. The Federal Security Service, the almighty well-known FSB, and Ramzan Kadyrov's clan in Chechnya. For decades, the FSB positioned itself as the guardian of Russia's internal security, as the ultimate authority, the wolf pack that keeps every region, every governor, every mayor and every federal official under control. If somebody steps out of line, the FSB knocks on their door. If somebody steals too much and doesn't share, speaks out too loudly, or starts climbing above their rank, the FSB teaches them their place. Every region in Russia obeys this unwritten rule, except one, and you guessed it, Chechnya. This region is the only part of Russia where the FSB is not feared, not respected, not even tolerated. Their authority ends the moment they enter the republic. Their orders do not matter, their agents walk on eggshells, and one wrong move could get them either expelled or quietly removed from the chessboard. The best case scenario. Maybe even killed. In Moscow, this is seen as a humiliation. Inside Lubyanka, it is an open wound, but inside the walls of the Kremlin, it is a necessary compromise, a price Putin agreed to pay in exchange for what he calls stability in the Caucasus region. But this so-called stability is nothing but a thin veil covering a fierce, dangerous, and deeply personal rivalry. So today, let's talk about how the FSB resents Kadyrov, how Kadyrov humiliates them, how this dynamic poisons the foundations of Russian governance, and why this silent conflict could only one day blow wide open, straight into Putin's face. To understand the hatred between the FSB and the Chechen leadership, you need to understand the psychology of both sides. The FSB sees itself as the successor of the KGB, the same elite structure that once controlled the whole Soviet Empire. They believe that they are the brain, the nerves and the backbone of the state. They are the ones who decide what is allowed and what is forbidden. They are the ones who protect Russia. In their ideology, no region, no individual, no clan can ever stand above them. Except, of course, if your region starts with Che and ends with Chechnya. The moment FSB officers enter the republic, everything changes. Their authority evaporates like steam in the desert. Instead of being the predators, they become watched prey. Kadyrov's men follow them everywhere, to hotels, to cafes, to restaurants, to houses of every single person they even meet. The FSB cannot conduct investigations, interviews, they cannot perform raids without approval, and they cannot even punish criminals if those criminals are loyal to Kadyrov. Imagine being a part of a security agency whose entire identity revolves around dominance, and suddenly finding yourself powerless in a territory that should technically be under your control as well. This is where this resentment turns into humiliation, and then in return the humiliation turns into hatred. From the FSB's perspective, Chechnya is the single most lawless region in Russia. From Kadyrov's perspective, the FSB is a meddling outsider that must be kept under constant pressure, so they never feel comfortable enough to challenge him. For years, Moscow pretended everything was fine. For years, Putin acted like this was some kind of a fragile balance. But behind closed doors, the FSB grew bitter. They saw Kadyrov building a private army, establishing extrajudicial prisons, collecting compromising materials on officials, and carrying out his own foreign operations, even in Moscow, without asking anyone's permission. And with every year, the Federal Security Service felt the leash tightening around their necks. The scariest and the most influential people became nothing but dogs in Kadyrov's domain. This struggle goes decades back. But was there one particular moment in Russia's modern history which absolutely crossed the line for the FSB patience? You bet there was one, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with what happened. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. If you want one event that perfectly captures the FSB's frustration, the Chechen clan's arrogance, and the Kremlin's cowardice, Just look at 2015, when opposition leader Boris Nemtsov was assassinated. Nemtsov was shot on the bridge right next to the Kremlin, the most heavily surveilled place in entire Russia, probably entire world, at least top 3 of them. You cannot drop a piece of gum there without 10 cameras catching it from 5 different angles. And yet, the murderers slipped away effortlessly. Soon enough, the investigation pointed towards a group of Chechens, who else, right? Men tied directly to Kadyrov's security apparatus. The FSB immediately demanded full control of the case. They claimed jurisdiction. They had the proof, the suspects, the motive. From their perspective, this was their moment to finally put pressure on Kadyrov's empire, to expose his men as criminals, to remind Chechnya that Russia is still a country with a central authority. But then Kadyrov intervened. He publicly praised one of the main suspects as a true patriot and a brave warrior, and then he made the official request that the detained Chechens must be transferred to Chechnya for prosecution. In other words, send them to me, I will take care of them. The FSB fought this with everything they had. They tried to claim federal authority, they appealed to the Kremlin, they insisted that the murder took place in Moscow, and therefore must be handled by Moscow investigators. Makes sense. And they lost. Putin sided with Kadyrov. As soon as the suspects were transferred to Chechnya, well, the predictable happened. Guess what? They disappeared. Quietly, conveniently, no trial, no investigation, no justice, no nothing. For the FSB, this was the deepest humiliation possible. Their own government literally told them that you have, guys, no power over Chechnya, not even Chechens who murder people in front of the Kremlin. Inside the Lubyanka, it was seen as a message from Putin himself. Kadyrov's loyalty is worth more than the FSB's pride, more than the law, more than justice, more than the life of a national oppositional leader. This moment permanently poisoned the relationship between Russia's most powerful security agency and Chechnya's ruling clan, and they never forgave each other. Next, it was the FSB's opportunity to respond. And they did. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. After 2015, the FSB did not try to confront Kadyrov openly. I mean, that would be self-destructive, to say the least. Instead, they shifted to sabotage, selective pressure, and silent pushback. They started targeting Chechens living outside the republic. Not Kadyrov's inner circle, that's, impossible. But businessmen, intermediaries, people suspected of handling money, weapons, or laundering operations. And suddenly, Chechens in Moscow faced new inspections, new raids, new arrests. The purpose was not law enforcement, not at all, it was just simple pressure. A warning shot fired from afar. Meanwhile, Kadyrov responded with equal pressure. Whenever the FSB tried to recruit agents in Chechnya, those agents immediately vanished, were intimidated, or were forced to flee. Whenever the FSB wanted to inspect certain facilities in the Republic, they found doors conveniently locked and witnesses unable to speak, or even the evidence already being removed. What a mystery, I guess. Kadyrov's structures monitored every move, every phone call, every attempt at infiltration. This was more than rivalry. This was warfare under the table. And as time passed, the FSB escalated even further. They began leaking information about Kadyrov's clan to journalists and political analysts. Nothing too big, at least at first. Nothing that could cause a direct confrontation, but constant small drops of poison. Stories about Kadyrov's private prisons, stories about executions, about drug trafficking, arms trafficking, corruption. The standard set of I'm governing in Chechnya, so these are my daily activities kind of stuff. These were not random leaks, these were pressure valves. At the same time, the FSB quietly nurtured alternative power brokers in the North Caucasus. Various local leaders suddenly received unusual attention, funding, and access to federal bodies. The intention was obvious. The FSB wanted to cultivate a post-Kadyrov future. They wanted options, but Kadyrov then noticed, obviously. And every time the FSB tried to play long-term chess, he responded with immediate brute force, not calculated at all, just implosive reaction, basically. He kept tightening his control over every inch of Chechnya, purging disloyal figures, expanding his personal army, and sending a clear message. There will be no replacement, not while I'm still alive. This tug-of-war continued for years, and through all of it, the Kremlin remained silent, pretending nothing was happening, refusing to choose sides, terrified of triggering an explosion. Yet, everyone understood that this was unsustainable. And here we come to the biggest problem. This fragile balance only exists because one man is still alive, Ramzan Kadyrov. His entire power system is built around fear, loyalty and money. If you remove him and the whole structure begins to crumble. The FSB knows this. They are waiting. They understand that Kadyrov's health is worsening, that his successors are incompetent or unpopular, and that Chechnya without him is a volcano preparing to erupt. In Moscow, officials whisper that the moment Kadyrov is gone, the FSB will launch the largest security operation the region has ever seen since the early 2000s. Their goal will be simple, to just restore federal control, destroy the militias, dismantle the private armies, and reassert the dominance they lost 20 years ago. But Chechnya will not simply obey. Kadyrov's inner circle will not go down quietly. His fighter, his Kadyrovцы will resist. Some will try to take power, others will try to break away, others will turn against Moscow entirely. The FSB thinks it is preparing to reclaim Chechnya. What they do not fully understand is that they may be preparing for an entire war. Because the biggest danger is not just internal rebellion, it's revenge. Generations of Chechens remember the wars of the 1990s and early 2000s. They remember the bombings, the massacres, the destruction. Kadyrov, for all his brutality, acted as a barrier between that memory and Moscow. He was the one who swallowed the hate, so the Kremlin did not have to face it directly. But when he is gone, that barrier disappears. And at that moment, the FSB will not be dealing with the rival clan. They'll be dealing with the entire republic full of grievances, anger and unfinished history. They will walk into a region where every family lost someone, where every village remembers a tragedy, where loyalty cannot be bought anymore. No matter how strong the FSB thinks it is, Chechnya without Kadyrov will be something it has never confronted before. Unpredictable, proud, angry and uncontained. This is not stability. This is a fuse waiting to be lit. And when it finally lights, the consequences will not just stay contained inside Caucasus. They will shake the entire Putin's Russia. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support our work, there are links down below, for example, PayPal donations. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims are resolve they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.